and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. Anything that you have regarding any aspect of your business, we bring you India's sharpest minds and most expert voices to help you and bring you solutions to your very specific needs and concerns. I'm Sananda Jayaseelan. Today on the show, we're talking about the manufacturing space. What has been the impact? How is the manufacturing space preparing for the unlock? And also analyzing some of the recent comments of the finance minister, particularly with regard to the PLI scheme. All of that being decoded on the show today. Let me quickly welcome in our guests. Varun Alagh, co-founder, CEO Mamaearth. Sachidanand, Upadhyay, founder, Lord's Mark Industries. Uma Reddy, co-chair, FICCI Karnataka State Council. MD, Hightech Magnetics and Electronics Private Limited. Uma, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time here on the show. We're beginning today's panel on a very somber note. You've had the first wave, you've had the second wave, possibly a third wave. But if you look at the headline figures, Q4, and the projection is that Q4 of this fiscal could possibly be a good one. Uma, to you first, how are you viewing really the impact that we're likely to see on the manufacturing space, given the outlook for the economy and the outlook on the GDP?
Thank you, Sunanda. It's a pleasure to be back on this panel again. More importantly, it's a pleasure that we are still around to be here. So that's the good part of it, both in terms of industry and personally. Thanks to the pandemic, we do know that both financial year 2021 and 2022, we had major lockdown during the first quarter. The good part of it is that the financial year 2021 saw a rebound in quarter 2 to 4 of 2021. And so it's definitely a positive thought that we will have another rebound and recovery in financial year 21-22, though you said quarter 4. But then, things do look bright, looking forward, because we are back at work. We've been, at least in my company, we've been fully busy with our production. I know it is not the same for all industries. We are in the electronic component industry, and hence we have our business. But then there are issues. It's not as if it's smooth sailing, because the bottom lines are very, very bad, thanks to increased component prices, increased copper and steel prices, which have gone skyrocketing. So, the expectation for the market, is to remain with the same old prices, whereas the raw material prices have gone skyrocketing. So even though we expect a recovery, the bottom lines are going to be difficult unless there is a special package. And this, I would say, for all MSMEs, that there need to be a special package. I just would like to just add about the FICCI, what we did during the lockdown, of 21-22 in FICCI. We had an everyday meeting with industry members, along with facilitating it along with government officials, so that we could help them out, in terms of being able to, manage with the lockdown issues such as police, such as vehicles getting stopped, and many, many such areas. But I think the lesson going forward, for if at all, and God forbid, we don't have the third wave, that we need to learn a lot more and have better systems and framework in place, especially in MSMEs, because they're export-oriented companies, whether it's a small order or a large order. MSMEs who are into exports in the electronic and garment sector, even if they had 1 or 2 orders, they could not meet their commitments. And if it's a commitment, one commitment loss, it was a commitment loss totally. So I think that framework is something which we really need to look at from the last 2 learnings. Yes.
Okay. Varun, you play in a slightly more higher category than most other FMCG players. And, FMCG, particularly products which tend to play in this area, are largely seen as discretionary spends. Where I'm really going with this is the fact that I understand you work with 10 or different, contract manufacturers. Give us a sense of what really the pandemic meant for you when it came to manufacturing, and during the second wave, of course, some part manufacturing was allowed. How did that really work out for you, and what is the way forward looking like for you?
The nature of the lockdown was such that suddenly manufacturing had to be halted. Right? There was no clarity on opening up manufacturing for about 3 weeks. Right? There was no allowance of or clear rules of who can move around and who cannot. And public transport had clearly taken a hit. And import in parts which are import oriented also took significant hit. And it took almost 8 weeks last year to actually get complete clarity on all of these elements, right? And for the government to sort of start opening each one of them, and for us to reach a stage where each of our partners' manufacturing facilities were up at the 100% and beyond capacity that they could operate, and that too with increased honestly manpower, because of the 50% allowances, and because of the fact that some days some units had to go under containment, etc. That's it. This year, right, again, demand spike continues, right? We you would have heard about the popular lipstick effect, right? When people cannot buy and invest in large sized and scaled goods, right? They find happiness in small joys, right? And I believe personal care as a category is part of that small joy, right? You like to treat yourself well, right? And people are doing that while they're at home, right? That's it. The impact on supply chain in terms of complete continuity loss, right, has not been there this year, right? Of course, the impact has been there because of the number of people that our facilities could operate with, right? The fact that for some time public transport was not available and continues to be affected, right? Because of this, we had to structurally change a few things. For example, sourcing our blue collar workers from in and around the place, actually starting private transport facilities which are more quarantined and sanitized to actually get them to work. And
Sure.
there were setups which we had to create inside and near the manufacturing facilities where people could stay for continuity. And that said, the impact has been significantly lesser in this year compared to last year.
Sachidanand, the impact this year for manufacturing has definitely been less than what we've seen, last year, at least, like I was saying, part manufacturing being allowed. So do you feel that perhaps in the second wave, and also that we were better prepared, perhaps that things have been much better?
I agree with what Uma said and what Varun said. Of course, the industry has been impacted very, very badly, compared to the first pandemic. But of course, the first wave taught us, very much. We could have really come up into the second wave. We took all sort of precautions, which we learned from the first wave. Okay, of course, we need to take care for manufacturing sector is concerned, our workers are concerned, machines are concerned, timings are concerned, transport is concerned, and we need to plan everything, well in advance. Fine, first wave was, of course, a teacher to teach us how we could behave into second wave. But still, I believe manufacturing sector, as per our sector is concerned, we never expected the second wave to be so severe. It, of course, impacted very badly compared to the first wave. But yes, it impacted a lot. But we have learned a lot from first wave and second wave. We took, enough care to get losses a little bit minimized.
Mhm.
But as Varun said very correctly, yes, of course, transport is a part which really plays a vital role for all business sectors. In fact,
Okay.
it doesn't make sense if I don't have support for my transport sector, my manufacturing sector doesn't prosper. Even what Varun said and even what Uma said about export is concerned, yes, export is hampered very badly.
I have to take a quick break on that note. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight on the show, we're talking about India Unlock The focus tonight is on the manufacturing space. Sachidanand, even as we are doing the special series on the leaders of tomorrow called India Unlocks an LOT Special, my question is, how are you preparing for what is possibly going to be this additional demand? Whether it is ensuring you have your additional, your plant and machinery, the capacity is being met, whether it is ensuring that the workers who have gone back to their hometowns in the first wave are perhaps, they've come back to their jobs. How are you as a company, how are you as an industry ensuring that you are ready for this huge demand that we're perhaps expecting to see coming in the second half of this year?
Thank you, Sunanda. Yes, as I said very in my first part itself, okay, we have learned a lot from first wave and second wave. Yes, we have ensured that our workers are completely vaccinated. Secondly, we have also made arrangements for our workers, to stay in-house so that they have minimum contact with other people around. Third, due to making in-house arrangements for them to stay, we are away from the problem. Workers move to their hometown, something like that. But still, okay, you cannot avoid completely. But still, we try to, give the best to them. Third is manufacturing. Our programs and schedules are concerned. We have scheduled into now 3 shift, 4 shift also, where we have divided our workers so that there are minimum contacts between the workers. And then there are minimum contacts between our outside vendors like our transporters do come on the unit, so they do come very less in contact with our workers is concerned. Again, then we have come down with the help of robotic technology, loading, unloading and other parts, which is earlier a little bit manual also. We have come down to almost robotic part of it. So yes, we are trying to learn and to implement more and more new ways of, coming up and finding new ways to give best and best to the manufacturing of our unit is concerned.
Uma, I want to talk about the extension of the PLI scheme, the announcement of the extension of PLI as far as electronics manufacturers are concerned. You play in this space. How are you really reading that announcement?
The PLI scheme per se is a very, very good move, and it is definitely going to help the manufacturing of electronic components largely. However, I think there are certain points which the government needs to take care is that they need to link it to local value addition instead of volumes, which is what it is present. And if you really look at it, out of the 13 companies, actually 4 of the companies from our sector association, CIMI, had applied, and there was only one MSME, whereas all the others were large industries, which clearly shows that they can always import CKD kits and assemble it to reach their targets of larger volume. So until unless we look at local value addition, this is not going to reach to the MSMEs, because MSMEs per se will not be able to make use of considering the criteria that is set out for the PLI scheme. So the government has to actually come out with a specific scheme to address the issues related to MSMEs separately. The PLI scheme will indirectly support MSMEs, but there are certain changes that need to happen.
Sure. Sachidanand, do you want to also respond to what Uma was saying?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Uma said. She's absolutely right. PLI, for big major corporates or big corporates, it's an assembly line for them, and local value addition should be done. But I would certainly add that government along with PLI should also add some sort of liquidity incentives for local manufacturer, because your PLI is only if I have a capital to invest in and I do manufacture and then I sell and my numbers goes on, then I am liable for PLI. But if I don't have capital enough to manufacture the component, how do I reap the benefit of PLI? I cannot. So for MSME to get the benefit of PLI, government should always connect the PLI with some liquidity scheme. Okay, of course, if an MSME wants to avail the benefit of PLI, and as Uma very correctly said, okay, it has to be local, there has to be some local value addition done to it. So government should connect some liquidity scheme with it. Liquidity is must for it.
Varun, Sachidanand was speaking of liquidity. So I want to speak to you about the extension of the credit guarantee scheme, and also just the fact that a lot of businesses are saying there's not much that's changed for us, because we still, for instance, we have to continue paying GST. Money is not getting any easier or cheaper for us. What are some of your peers perhaps telling you, not so much for yourself, but what are your peers perhaps telling you when it comes to the fundraising scenario and their expectation of how things will perhaps change or not change in the next couple of months?
I think we wouldn't be able to share that from our own journey. We had the best blessing of being able to raise capital even during these times from the venture ecosystem, which has shaped up really well in the country. And that said, what we are clearly realizing is that there cannot be sort of, most of these products are not aimed at bailouts, right? They're largely aimed at providing extensions in terms of timelines, right? For businesses to come back to the efficiency levels, right? At which these capitals was issued, right? But one of the biggest challenges that we are seeing in the environment in terms of liquidity is working capital, right? Which has either gotten locked, extended, because of payouts not coming in on time, because of, again, inflation, like Uma said, which has led to the COGS component increasing, and because of increased import timelines, the amount of stock that you have to keep increasing. And I think the working capital liquidity has been one of the largest challenges in the MSME sector. And there needs to be, different ways, like, for example, quicker GST credit release, or delayed sort of, sort of GST payouts, or some of the other things which help take care of that liquidity in the short term, especially the working capital liquidity. And I think if that can be provided, and that can be taken care of from a short and medium term perspective, and all the MSME sector can come out of this really healthy.
Varun, we were talking about managing working capital. I want to talk about managing raw material. Have you learned any lessons from the first wave as a country? Because so much of what we do is dependent on sourcing of raw material from other countries, including, and especially I understand a large part of it is from countries like China. Have you learned lessons? Has our domestic supply chain, I know it's a very vast question and topic, but at least for the manufacturing industry, are we perhaps sourcing better? Have you learned any lessons?
That is actually one of the biggest things that we did over the last 2 years, right? We have moved to almost 95% of our RMPM sourcing from India itself, right? There is still about 5% left, which is largely because of the those components in packaging, or that technology currently not being available at scale in India. And although we have been talking to partners, even investing with partners, to ensure they're able to scale up that capacity. And because the biggest lesson that we have learned is local supply chain is far more reliable, right, than an import supply chain. Right? And that's actually going to be a big boost to the overall manufacturing sector in India as well. I would sort of urge all the corporates out there, all our partners out there, to be local about vocal, and buy from India as much as possible.
I want to talk very briefly, as we're running out of time, about price and cost inflation and the expectation of the projection you could perhaps give our viewers. Sachidanand, to you first.
There are various reasons, which affects inflation.
Yeah.
Commenting on a certain reason or certain point, why the inflation, how it could be controlled, why is it affecting. But I believe inflation could be only controlled if government has some control policy. We need to get government into some control policy where the inflation can control. That's what I feel.
I think in my view, the two largest structural reasons, one is of course the flow of money because of quantitative easing in US, right? And I don't see that structurally changing till 2023. That is going to keep crude up, right? And secondly, the impact of China's manufacturing policy on metals, right? They have clearly reduced metal productions. Their own production units are at 60% odd capacity utilization to curb pollution, and that has clearly impacted the demand for our metal sector, which again is a structural change. I don't see till our capacity significantly increase, and that changing in the short term. Right? So crude and metals clearly for another 1 to 1.5 years, I don't see that inflation getting curbed. Right? Palm oil, the government took action which is going to impact our inputs, at least some of them. Right? But the government needs to take more action on crude and metals as well.
All right, out of time on this panel, so let me take closing comments. What advice do you want to give someone who's watching today's panel based on perhaps your personal experience and learnings?
Thanks. Totally agree with whatever everybody said, because electronic components and electronic industry, we are totally dependent on imports, and without imports, we're just not going to be able to move ahead. So unless the government comes out with a clear-cut policy for electronic industry, especially for manufacture of passive components, and also being able to come out with a specific scheme for MSMEs in the electronic industry, because Chinese components keep finding its way, even though there are restrictions, it comes through other countries. So we do have issues there, and that is an area that we really need to look at, a specific policy that can support MSMEs in its growth plan. And in largely, if the third wave does come work, all the associations, be it the Federation of Karnataka Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the FICCI, the sector associations, FICCI, all of us have been interacting with the government. And a framework has to be applied so that the industry continues to work and the MSMEs don't really suffer in the lockdown situation. That's where I think there's a lot of lessons learned during the last two pandemics, and we need to ensure that we don't go back and keep having the same issues which we had in the first and the second wave.
Uma, Varun, Sachidanand, thank you so much for your time here on the show. Completely out of time on this panel. If you have any feedback for us, as always, we love hearing from you. Do remember to send us your feedback on the contact details you have on your screens. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.